Hi everyone, welcome to eLearnChat, where talk, it's knowledge. I'm joined today by our lovely co-host, the one and only, I was going to say M Appeal of eLearning, Lesley Price.
Lesley.
And today we're going to talk about something very near and dear to her heart, which we mention almost every week. If we miss a week, it's a mistake. And that's Learn Appeal. And with us today, we will meet one of the board members and trustees of Learn Appeal, Asi DeGani. So this should be an interesting show, and hopefully people will learn more about what you're doing, your passion in life right now, and we'll have some fun information for you. So let's get started. And Lesley, would you like to introduce Asi for us?
Well, yes, this is my good friend and colleague, Asi DeGani, who actually has been involved with Learn Appeal since before I was involved with Learn Appeal. So Asi is a trustee. Asi is very well known in the e-learning community in the UK. I'll let him tell you what company he belongs to, rather than me going on about it. But what I'm hoping is that we can actually get a few more people involved. I know you're fantastic, Rick, and the rest of the team at eLearnChat. You mention Learn Appeal every week, and Asi and I are just delighted to be able to tell you a bit more about what we're doing and why we're doing it, or this afternoon in your terms, this evening in the UK.
That sounds wonderful. So, Asi, how did you get... Well, actually, where do you work, Asi?
So, hi, Rick. Hi, Lesley. Thank you for having me. I work in, and I have been for a few years in the corporate side of e-learning. I work for a company by the name of Kingfisher, which, if you think about the equivalent in the US, would be somebody like Lowe, and we have a number of brands in the home improvement industry here in the UK and in Europe, brands like B&Q, which are very, very well known in the UK.
That sounds great. And how did you get him? Actually, let's take a step back. Either one of you, how did Learn Appeal start? What was the guiding force between Learn Appeal? How did you create it, and what's your mission?
Over to you, Asi. You were involved before me.
Thank you. So Learn Appeal started when Jonathan Satchell, who at the time was the CEO of the largest e-learning company in the UK, it has only grown since we started it, attended an event, I think for the marketing industry, if I remember correctly, and he decided that an industry which has a charity adjacent to it makes a lot of sense, because it's very easy to rally the professionals around the cause. And I think, Lesley, I'll borrow a term from you. You always talk about the e-learning industry being very incestuous, but we know the names, we know the faces in most cases. We follow the same handles on Twitter, etc. But in a lot of cases, you go to conferences, you hear people talk, you talk about the fact that the industry has a spirit behind it. It's usually good people, but there's not much more than that, especially not beyond the profession. And Jonathan wanted to put together something that the industry could rally behind. So he started this idea of a charity. He started collecting a few trustees that he wanted to work with. I was lucky enough to be one of them, and from there we started saying, okay, so we have the four of us. It was initially 4 trustees. What's the cause? What would we give the industry as a cause to rally behind and say, this is a charity that does things on your behalf, that wants you to be involved? And we started looking for ideas. I think there were a few the initial 6 months were a little frustrating because we found things, and some of the things were, so one of the things that we talked about was 3D printing of housing for emergency support for disasters. So think about an earthquake or a tsunami. 3D printing gives you the ability to very quickly create shelter, which is more than just tents. A lot of the problems when you deal with these situations come from the nature of the shelter. But that seemed to be beyond our abilities and didn't exactly fit into what we were looking to do. So we continued looking at other things. We had a few weeks where ideas were coming in because we went out with a general call saying, you know, bring us the ideas and we'd like to do something. Eventually we narrowed on, it has to do with learning. I think we know that, especially if you look at the world today, there's the gap between the educated and the uneducated. There's the gap between the connected and the disconnected, and all of those things married up. And I said one of the things that we wanted to do is actually reach out to where we are not making an impact, and where we are not making an impact is where there is no connection, is where there is very little technology. And those are the initial thoughts that brought us to this idea. There was initially we worked with an individual that was building something similar to the initial idea that we adopted, which is the Learn Appeal box. That didn't really get off the ground. We then started working with Apatir, at which point, Lesley, you were already involved, and the rest is history.
I mean, I got involved, Rick, because I decided I was going to take early retirement. And Jonathan heard, I'd known Jonathan for quite a few years, and Jonathan had heard I was going to be taking early retirement. And he either sent me an email or a text message, and he said, a little bird tells me you're going to have more time on your hands. Can I take you out for lunch and make you an offer you cannot refuse? And I just burst out laughing. And Jonathan then said, have you any ideas what you want to do? Do you actually want to completely retire? Or how would you like to do something with Learn Appeal? And I said, well, what will I do? And he said, at the moment, we haven't got any fixed ideas. So it's a bit like as Asi said, they were looking at different things. And Jonathan said, it's a bit like a blank canvas. We've got some ideas. And they had looked at another company, Willow DNA, had offered Learn Appeal use of their learning management system to help another organization who was working, it was an academic who was working with albinism in Africa, and albinism is a big problem there, huge problem. And we tried to do something, but we found out that it was all learning in the cloud, and the people we wanted to connect with didn't have access. And as Asi said, we were working with actually somebody that I knew from days when I was at UFI, and that didn't quite work out because he'd other things to do. And then because of the connections I got, I was then introduced to the guys at Apatir, and exactly at the same time the McKinsey report came out, offline and falling behind, the barriers to internet adoption. And that really hit home. I think Asi will agree. That absolutely hit home to all of the trustees, because there's 7.2 billion people in the world, and 4.4 billion have little or no internet access. So that is more than 50% of the world's population.
But your approach was very good, because not only do they not have internet access, very low education, very low financial status, they don't have a great life usually. And
No.
one of the things that you folks are focusing on, at least at this point, is educating. Is the
Yes.
standalone boxes that don't require a connection. They create their own Wi-Fi network in essence within, I think it was 300 yards or I forgot what it was.
300 meters.
300
And
meters.
That's if you don't have. So what the Learn Appeal Capsule is, and it was Wes and Daryl Appeteer that developed it, and I was put in touch with them. As I say, the e-learning industry is very incestuous. Although it's a very large community, it's very small in that people do know each other. And I was introduced to Wes and Daryl, who had literally just set up their own business. And Wes had spent time in India and realized what the issues were. He'd gone into a school and he'd realized what the issues were. So he had ideas about developing this offline solution. And then Lesley, being Lesley, got in touch with all kinds of other people and gave him a huge wish list. And I found out about all the issues also with power and what we've got now, and also with what you would call chat, community engagement, so people can share their own resources. Mm-hmm. And our vision from the beginning, I think Asi will agree with this, was what we wanted to do was, our vision was, we don't buy people a fish, we don't give people a fish, we give them the skills to fish for themselves.
Yeah. And that's really quite unique, because if you look at the history of the quote-unquote third world, they've been exploited more than anything else by most governments, for whatever reason, colonialism, you name it. There's been a lot of problems in the third world. But nobody's ever tried educating the third world, at least not in a concerted effort, and in places where education was nearly impossible. And that's one of the things you're doing.
Yeah, and our focus, I think Asi will agree, our focus is on, at the moment, certainly when we're working in Sub-Saharan Africa, our focus is on vocational skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, get people
the
jobs.
idea, I think, we looked initially, one of the first causes we were looking at was trying to finance food programs in schools, because the original statement was, I think we were looking at something like hungry children cannot learn, or something like that, because that for us connected to learning. And it's true that it connects to learning, but it doesn't actually come back to what the e-learning industry does. So the idea of actually giving them the ability to stand on their own 2 feet, we would have been very happy if we could have gotten that part of the world connected. But Jonathan isn't Mark Zuckerberg, neither am I. Internet satellites are not the direction we could have taken it on. But doing something as simple as giving them the resources to become self-sufficient, to me and to the rest of the trustees, was a lot more appealing than, driving around with a van and fish. Absolutely.
So what we've done, now I'm looking to see how I share a screen. How do I do that?
In Skype, you go to, is it
More
conversation?
options?
No,
Screen
not up.
share?
You saw screen share?
Screen share?
Yes. Let's go full screen.
Right, let me go on to screen share. So what we have done is, we have
are
now,
seeing your screen,
if you look
by the
at
way.
this, all these courses, so the ones I'm showing, a guide to building a beehive, construction methods, climate change, collecting rainwater, English for the restaurant service, entrepreneurship, first aid, fish farming, all of these courses, every single one has been created by a volunteer. Every single one.
Now, another interesting thing when we look at what's going on in these disconnected areas. There are a lot of programs that donate old equipment from the first world, so some of your old phones may be going there, some of the old desktops, instead of going into landfills, will be sent there. But in a lot of cases, what we were looking at is the situation of, okay, so they have the computers, what do they do with them? And that's exactly where this type of stuff is coming in. So you might have a rural community, and one of the projects we work with, Ubuntu in South Africa, they have phones which I think came from one of the American carriers, not gonna mention any names, not to plug any companies, and they were using them to practice writing. They were using them for very specific things. But again, because of the lack of connectivity, these devices, which in the case of phones are mini computers anyway, are reduced to just being a screen with a keyboard, which if you don't have connectivity is not really a lot. So what this box does is it livens up all of these environments with content which is relevant, because we make sure that we work with the projects and we check what they need, which is factually correct. So you don't get, because today you go on the YouTube, you go on YouTube randomly, take down a video, it's not always the right thing to do or the relevant thing to do, and we make sure that the stuff is relevant for the project that we send it to. And the people who create it are volunteers from the e-learning community, so it is a high quality, relevant, correct type of material to be used. And in some cases, I can tell you that I have no idea the first thing to do when going fish farming. And in some cases, these individuals will be in a situation where if they don't have the village elder, or they're trying something new, say they want to introduce a beehive, they improvise, because they don't just walk down to the library and take out a book. And this plugs in a gap which otherwise would be very difficult to plug.
For example, the beehives, beekeeping is actually a really interesting one. So do you want me to stop screen sharing?
Sure.
Stop sharing. So beekeeping, one of the things that people don't realize is that in Sub-Saharan Africa, elephants are a huge problem. When elephants need water or want food, they want it, and they want it now, immediately. And so they will then go searching for food and water. And that means that they essentially just tread over villages, farmlands, whatever. But elephants don't like bees. So if farmers put beehives round the edge of the village or round the edge of their farms, it means that the elephants will stay away, the farmers get more income from the honey, get better pollination from the bees, can collect beeswax, and they then don't want to encourage poaching to slaughter the elephants, so it improves tourism.
Yep.
So it's a complete win-win situation.
That's good. How many countries are you in right now?
Only three.
Three.
South Africa, Kenya, and our most recent is the UK, isn't it, Asi?
Absolutely. It was very... personally, I was very happy to see that what we have done is not just used far away, but there was a surprise. I think we always spoke about the benefits, potential benefits of using that. I was also trying to convince Lesley that if I put one of the boxes in my house, then my kids wouldn't be on YouTube, but would get some stuff that is actually beneficial to them. But beyond that, we did actually come to a number of projects, and one is already running, where the capsule's benefits of giving you the positive of connectivity without the negative were very, very significant.
So we're working with Bernardo's in rural Scotland, but even more exciting, we're going to be introducing next academic year, so come September, into a high school in London, in one of London's most deprived boroughs, where the young people have phones, but at home their parents simply can't afford, free Wi-Fi, and the teachers want to provide resources for the young people. So we're going to put the capsule into this school, and it means that the children at the school, there's a senior school, are going to be able to access it either before school, at break time, during homework club, or I probably shouldn't say it, but maybe even if they're a bit naughty and in detention, they'll actually be able to access learning. And their teachers will know that it's totally and utterly safe. The teachers can even see how long each student has spent on each question. And even better, 2 weeks ago, Wes Atkinson, I and another girl from Apatir, we did a career workshop with year 10 students, so 15-year-olds, telling the 15-year-olds that there is a career out there in e-learning, in instructional design, and you should have seen their jaws drop. They never knew this industry existed. Mm-hmm. They didn't realize that they didn't have to have a degree to get involved, that a lot of it was skills-based, and that they could actually learn the skills themselves. So Wes was very clever. He was getting them in each group. So we saw about 100 students, and in each group, he got the group to, did an outline course. And one of them was teaching your grandmother how to use Snapchat. And the kids chose their own topic. And what we're going to do a follow-up, and Asi will be involved in this. So we're going to do a follow-up that of the young people who attended. We're going to invite applications and get 4 to 6 of them to apply, and then have a mentor within that we'll get from the e-learning industry. So they'll then learn very basic skills, but they'll then develop courses that can go on the capsule that goes into their school or that goes out to Kenya.
Now, out of curiosity, is the courseware developed in English, localized to the specific countries? How are you handling the language barrier?
You want me to answer that one, Asi?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, at the moment we're doing everything in English.
Okay.
One of the reasons is because we've been very fortunate. Evolve, which is the authoring tool we're using, and we're using that partly because Apatir are donating it to us, but also because it doesn't take up much space, and it's also device responsive. But one of the reasons we're doing it in English is we're very fortunate that we've got another volunteer, Lucy Hodge from Walkgrove. Now, Sarah Smith is another trustee. She's the managing director of Walkgrove, but one of her employees has actually had a PhD thesis approved by a very well-known university in the UK, and the thesis will all be on Learn Appeal. So we're going to have academic rigor behind what we're doing. So at the moment, that's why we're sticking to English, but the system will actually allow any language.
That's great. So what do you see as one of the end results of all this?
Asi, over to you.
there are two stages, I think, or there are two stages for the two components of the charity. One of the components of the charity, obviously, are the people who get the capsules. As far as I'm concerned, become self-sufficient, reach the point where the village is rich enough to put in broadband, and then they don't need the capsule anymore. Might be wishful thinking, but you know, over time this will possibly happen, especially if the bees help them keep the village from being destroyed by elephants. The other side of it is the opportunity that we're giving people in the UK to go into the industry. There's a catch-22 which we're all familiar with. You want to do a job, so you need to prove that you have experience in the job. But you don't have experience in the job, and that's what you want to do the job, and so on. In that respect, what we do in Learn Appeal is give people who are academically trained in instructional design the opportunity to create content, put it on their CV, give examples, and then go into the industry. We've done it a number of times, and as far as I'm concerned, that's the other part, which is as important, because being a charity for the industry, yes, we give the charity, we give the industry, sorry, an opportunity to do something good, but we also give the industry an opportunity to grow and become better, because by introducing new blood into it, we will be in a better place. Industry, the reality in which we operate is constantly changing, and if we just keep the, old buggers like myself, we are not going to keep up with the times. So there is a very important component here to bring in those young people that Lesley was talking about.
And I'm just sharing my screen now, Rick. What we've actually got on our website is Build Your Career. So we've got a student, we get volunteers from all over the world. Mm-hmm. So here we've got Jessica Shang, who's a student at Florida State University, and she did what she got on her CV. She then asked me, would I write a reference? And from the reference, she then went on and got a scholarship. Ura Amin was doing her master's. She then did work experience with us, and she is now a successful instructional designer. Jeanne Paddock was an intern at Unicorn Training, and he'd never done any kind of e-learning before, never. And he wrote something on climate change. And we've now got Unicorn, for example, here, and they were the ones who Jamie was doing his internship for, and they said, oh, please can he do his internship supporting Learn Appeal, because then it's something real that he's actually doing. So it's not, it's a real thing they can put on their CVs. And the lovely thing about Ura was Ura developed such a great relationship with our contact out in Kenya. When she went on holiday, she went to see him.
That's great.
So I haven't met him, but she has.
That's great.
What we're doing is slightly different.
So Lesley, tell me, because I've seen you throughout this year and a half or even longer, and how you get excited by the capsules being deployed and the successes, even when you're talking about the individual successes, how they've worked and gotten ahead because of that. What do you feel when you see these successes? How do you feel? What do you feel your accomplishments are like?
It's, to me, it's I just love it. I'm no longer, I've had, as you would say in Scotland, as we say in Scotland, I've had my day. I've been a director, I've done all these kind of things, and I was very ill. When I was in my early 30s, I was very, very ill, and so many people came out the woodwork to help me, and I can never repay them.
Right.
And I wouldn't ever want anybody else to be ill, but what I'm doing now is through the good health I've got now, I'm paying forward. And I want as many people as possible from all over the world to join us. At the moment, we've got volunteers in Argentina, the States, France, Istanbul. We've still to get one from Australia. I don't think we've got one from Australia yet. So come on, all you Aussies out there, get the finger out. We've got volunteers in the UK. And we don't, what we do, and I think Asi will agree with this, we don't want to make this like the day job. So we don't tell people what they've got to create a course in. My God, we've got a list of 198 topics. And what we say to people is, pick something that interests you. Enjoy what you're doing. We want you to enjoy working for Learn Appeal.
That's great. One more thing. As you're putting it out and as it's growing, what do you need from the community? What do you need in terms of help, whether it's financial? Because I believe this is, at this point, you're mostly self-funded, and whatever funding you get from people who give. What do you folks need to keep sustaining this?
So one of the great things about the way the charity is built, and this was after looking at other charities, is we are not a machine. The people that you see, and pretty much not many more people, but Lesley, myself, the other trustees, the people who are behind the capsule, so Wes that Lesley mentioned before, these are the people who are involved. We do not have a big marketing group. We do not have a big, machine that works behind all of this. So the way that can be contributed, there's one of two. One is through money. You can say, I want to finance a project, or I want to help build capsules, or something of that ilk. Or the other way, if you're an individual and you do not want to or cannot donate money, we would love getting your time. In some cases, that can be creating modules, and that's by far the thing where we need help the most. As Lesley mentioned, we have a list of more than 100, and I'm pretty sure that when we finish those, we will have new lists. We would also love for individuals to, when we reach the second stage, start creating content in different languages. I would love to have a day where a project could give us a call, because they don't have internet connectivity, and say, I need learning on subject A, B, and C in Spanish and Swahili, and we can just go to the library, pull those off, put them in the capsule, and send one to them.
How much does it cost to make one capsule?
Put it in perspective, Rick.
Leslie? Yeah. How much does it cost to make one capsule?
Sorry?
How much does it cost to make one capsule?
About 150 quid.
Which is in normal money?
I don't know how much is 150 pounds in dollars.
How many pounds?
150.
It's 150.
That's
so it's about
$200,
I'd imagine, not much more than that.
So if you could get people
to put things in perspective, before you finish, to put things in perspective, my contact in Kenya, on our website, on the Learn Appeal website, people will see a video from Eric Kamuri in Kenya. And Eric sent that video to me on WhatsApp, because that was the cheapest way for him to send it. And it cost him 1,000 Kenyan shillings, which is, and that's the same as it would have cost if he was to stream it, which is the equivalent of £7, which is, how much is £7? $10, $12, Asi?
Yep, something like that. Yeah.
For a 45-second video would cost that, except 1,000 Kenyan shillings is 20% of a rural worker's monthly wage.
Right, that's a lot of money. Yep.
And that's the equivalent of somebody in the UK on minimum wage spending £240, which is what, $350? $300 to view a 45-second video.
Yep.
That's why these people need our help.
Yeah. Now, on your website, do you have a place where people can either join, donate, or help? Because frankly, $200 isn't that much to build a computer, and I bet you in this community, which isn't poor, you should be able to get quite a few $200 donations. What do you think?
Yeah, I hope so.
And now we've never asked anybody to donate anything, but I think this is a good time to ask. If you're watching the show and you want to help out, it's a great project, and it does a lot of good for people who don't get a lot of good. $200, a quick donation. It's not that bad. We'll donate our first 200, and I ask you guys, donate $200 to Learn Appeal. They can do that right on the website?
We'll have to, at the moment, we're in the middle of changing our website, and Asi is one of the ones that's working on it. So Asi and I are working on that. But if they just send on the website, let me go back to screen sharing, share screen. On our website, there is an area where it says, looking for it here, it says get involved up at the top here. So at the very top it says get involved, and that then takes you to a web form, and all that people would have to do is then fill in the form.
Okay.
And one of the things on there is sponsoring capsules.
Okay.
So it's actually there. And we're getting, just so you're aware, Rick, we are getting other support from the industry. So for example, Wes Atkinson and I were on, you know my friend Colin Steed that I talk about?
Yes.
So Colin does Learning Now TV, and that's Nigel Payne there. And so Wes and I were on Learning Now TV.
Last week, weren't you on last week?
An interview with us.
Last week, right? We saw that.
Yeah. And I did an interview with them just after I'd started with Learn Appeal, and so we were invited back to share what we've been doing.
That's great. It's a great project, and it's a good charity. It's something that benefits a lot of people who really don't get a lot of benefit. So okay, good. We will.
And the last one. Sorry, I'm coming in again.
Yes.
The last one is we've just been part of an award. So we're working with another charity called Brooke, and the vet who are taking. They wanted to take eLearning to places where they didn't have the internet, they didn't have mains electricity, and the vet that we're working with, Ebony Escalona, has just been awarded one of the very first Inspiration Awards from the British Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons.
Oh, how nice. That's great.
So that's what we're doing.
Well, good. Well, we will put in the show notes how you can, we'll put the website and the pages where you can donate or become part of the project, help out. It's a good project. I think you guys do great work. It's a nice idea. It's something that, like I said, you're helping in areas where people haven't helped that much. Maybe they help, but it's not quite a sustaining help. There's nothing like helping people help themselves. So
absolutely.
I think
that is our vision.
It's a great cause. Well, I'm glad, Asi, you could make it on today to share some of how you got involved in your vision. And Lesley,
thank you very much for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. And Lesley, as always, we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to actually focus on Learn Appeal.
Oh,
tonight,
no, our pleasure. It's a great project. And you and I have talked about that. I think you guys are doing a great job. And in fact, I think we're going to be doing DevLearn this year live. So maybe I'll figure out a way that we can get you guys involved in that too with us. So
oh, brilliant!
We'll do something like that.
Just tell David Kelly Lesley says.
I will.
Because I know David as well.
Yep, I will. I think he'll be enthused by that too. So I think that'll give it one more thing, and maybe we'll talk by then. Maybe we can get a capsule there just to show it and things like that. So that'd be fun. So we
can certainly do that for you, and I think Asi will agree that everybody that we demonstrate it to, everybody just shakes their head and they go, "Are we really not connected to the internet?"
Mm-hmm.
The guy Eric in Kenya just thinks it's a miracle box. He says it's a box of magic.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And you know what's funny? If you really look at it, a lot of cameras today create their own little internet. And that's how you connect other devices, phones, tablets to a camera. It's the same idea. And it works. You know, people go, "You don't need an internet?" No, my camera's talking to me. It's creating the internet. And it's just a great way to do it, and it's fairly inexpensive to do that in terms of the technology. It's pretty simple to create a small internet. Like you said, 300 meters is quite a way.
And if electricity isn't an issue, you can actually put in a powered, you can put in a powered router, and then the range is actually a kilometer.
Sure. Which is pretty good.
And it will take between 150 and 200 concurrent learners.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. That's pretty good, actually.
Who can all chat and share resources.
Yep.
So you've got a course on poultry keeping, and you take a picture and you say, "Oh, my hens are all losing their feathers. What do I do?" And the next person who's on there can then look at the photo and say, "Oh, I did this, I did that. This is what you should do." So it's all about helping them with community engagement as well.
And that's a very important issue, because if you think about, again, this capability of taking pictures, things that, or the way it works today is the village elder will come along, look at the hen, the bee, whatever it is, and say, "Oh, we had this many years ago and this is what we did." The moment you move it into a resource that everybody can access, if there isn't an elder that has seen it before, you can still get an answer. If we have a database of, I'll call those conditions or illnesses that you might encounter in a chicken coop or a beehive, then you are immediately solving their problems, the problems that they've never had before. The power of that is immense. They are actually becoming part of humanity. It sounds ridiculous, but things that for us today, you go to a GP, you go to a doctor, not a problem. You don't have that there because of the disconnection, and this can bridge not only space but also time.
Sure. Well, again, a pleasure having you both on to talk about Learn Appeal, and we'll have it in the show notes. We'll talk about that on further shows, I'm sure. And again, thanks a lot, and I appreciate your engagement in this project. It's really great seeing people get engaged in things they believe in. So kudos to you. So
thanks very much, Rick.
And many thanks. You're more than welcome. And we will see you guys next week on eLearnChat. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks.
Take care, folks. Bye.
Bye.